welcome back to my channel again. So for today's video I am going to be doing my 19 and 20 week pregnancy update. Today I am 21 weeks pregnant, so I thought I would just update you on how the past couple of weeks have been. I didn't do an update last week because I expressed in the last pregnancy update I did how anxious I was feeling for the 20-week update, and I didn't just want to kind of bombard you with more of the same because that is what it would have been. I was feeling so tense, so stressed, so panicked, and I just didn't think it was worth doing an update. One thing I did quickly want to say is that if you hear me expressing how anxious I'm feeling, it's so lovely of you all to try and reassure me, and I do really appreciate all the lovely comments and the try not to worry, and I do know that. I know worrying isn't good for me and it isn't good for the baby. I know that, and I totally appreciate everyone has the best intentions when they say that. I went out to make these videos so that if someone else was pregnant, having gone through infertility and or miscarriage, and they were feeling anxious, they could see that other people felt that way. I'm not expecting anyone to have a solution for me because I don't think there is one. I think that's just how it's going to be for me. And that's fine. It's fine to feel this way. I've been through a lot to get to this point, so I'm bound to feel stressed, I'm bound to feel anxious, and I'm okay with that. I'm dealing with it as best I can, but I just don't want you guys to feel like you have to try and give me a solution, because I don't think there is one, and I'm constantly worrying that I'm going to be annoying people by how anxious I feel, but I have to stay true to why I did these updates, and why I did them was because I knew I was going to find this really hard. And as much as I love being pregnant, I think it's the most amazing experience, it is also the scariest experience, and that's fine. And if people find my videos and they're scared too, I want them to know that's okay. It's not ideal, no, and yes, of course relaxing would be better for you and it would be better for the baby, but for some people it's just not possible, and that's okay too. And that is why I'm making these videos. I hope that makes sense. Totally don't want to sound ungrateful for a second, but yeah, I just don't want people to get sick of me and think I'm moaning or being ungrateful, because I'm really not. I couldn't be more grateful to be pregnant. I just want to be really honest about pregnancy after infertility and pregnancy after a recurrent miscarriage, and it's bloody scary, really, really scary. And yeah, I am loving it, I'm enjoying every second of it, but I'm also terrified through every second of it. So yeah, that was the longest intro ever. I hope I can edit this into something that makes some sort of sense, but yeah, I'm just going to crack straight on with the update on that note. So I don't think I'll beat around the bush, and I'll just get straight into the 20-week scan, which was on Monday, which was the 5th of June. It is Friday today. As I'm filming this, I'm 21 weeks today. So on Monday, we had our 20-week scan. It was in the morning, thank God, because I would have driven myself insane if it had been any later. The whole weekend I felt absolute sick to my stomach with panic and fear for this scan. I cannot tell you how much I had, well, you all know from my last update, how much I had convinced myself something was going to be wrong. The scan that's meant to take 20 minutes for us took an hour and a half because baby was just not playing ball at all, didn't want to move, didn't want to give us the right measurements, and it was a long and stressful process that involved me and Andrew going in and out of the scan room about 4 times, just to try and get the baby moving so we could get the measurements we needed. Luckily, is it sonographer? Luckily he was as determined as we were that he was going to get those measurements that day, because I think if I'd had to go home and come back another day, we know what I'm like, that wouldn't have been good, would it? I would have been a mess. So yeah, thankfully he kept going for that, hour and a half to get the measurements we needed. He could see I was extremely anxious. He mentioned it numerous times, and he did say he thinks I should speak to my midwife about it, which I'll definitely mention it to my midwife. I know this isn't normal to be this anxious, but I just don't really know what they can do. If anyone has any experience, if anyone has experienced anxiety in pregnancy, ordinarily I'm not an overly anxious person. I started to notice that I was quite anxious after, the whole pregnancy journey full stop. So after being diagnosed with the infertility problems, and then particularly after my miscarriages and after my mum's diagnosis, I definitely started to notice I was quite anxious. I was getting stress-induced migraines. I was getting issues where I felt like I couldn't swallow. I don't know if anyone's experienced that before. Apparently it is quite a common anxiety symptom, but it wasn't one I'd heard of. And I literally felt my throat was closing up, or like someone had hold of my throat and was squeezing. It's a really horrible feeling. But prior to all this, like prior to 2 or 3 years ago, I'd never really experienced anxiety. I've always been a very happy person, but you know, sometimes things in life happen that change things. So he did suggest speaking to my midwife at my next appointment about how anxious I am feeling, which I will definitely do. I don't think there's any harm in expressing how you are feeling. I personally think after what it has taken to get to this point, infertility and losing 3 babies, I personally think it's completely understandable and justified why I feel the way I do, but there's always that fear of, are they going to think I'm crazy? Are they going to think I'm unstable? And I know I'm not. I just know I need to know that my baby's going to be okay, and obviously no one can tell you that. So yeah, I am going to mention it, but if any of you have experienced it or know someone that has experienced quite severe anxiety in pregnancy, I'd be really interested to know, is there anything they can do? Not really, I don't really know if there is. That's why I've not really mentioned it too much with the midwife before, because I just kind of thought, what can they do when you're pregnant? There's not a lot they can do. But it will be interesting to see if there is. I had fully been expecting this video to be a quick update, but I can see now I am in a very rambly mood. So sorry, it might be a long one. Get a cup of tea, maybe a 3-course meal, and we will just go into it. So yes, cut a long story short, 20-week scan on Monday. Took a long time, but baby is fine, which is the bottom line, which is amazing. Got some pictures here I can show you. He's definitely a boy. We saw it again. It's definitely there. So this is baby. We've got 2 little pictures here. He was looking absolutely perfect. He went really close up on his features, like we saw his little lips and his little nose, and oh, it was amazing. It was really, like, despite being terrifying, it was a really in-depth, amazing scan, like seeing their brain and seeing their heart and the valves, and it's crazy how much you can see. So yeah, baby was looking fine. Baby is quite fat, I must say. I've got the measurements here, and what did it say? So the legs and arms were measuring exactly on track. I think they were 1 day ahead, so they were fine. Baby's belly, however, 2 weeks ahead, so he's got a fat little belly. I think he might take after his mum there, and his head was about a week ahead as well, so he's a little chunk basically, but he plotted it all on the graph and everything is fitting in perfectly on the like levels of good measurements, so he's well in. He said he was measuring perfectly. He was just looking great. He couldn't see any problems at all. He was really happy that he got all the measurements he needed, and that baby was looking great, so that was really good. He eventually finished the scan and he was like, congratulations, everything looks really good, I'll just write up your report and then bring it out to you and you can be on your way. So me and Andrew go into the waiting room, we're like feeling on top of the world, we were like, we're gonna get a McDonald's to celebrate, like we were feeling great. And then he came out about 10 minutes later and he was like, guys, can I just have a chat in this little room with you? And we were like, shit. We were like, poo. What is the problem? Because he'd made everything sound like everything was fine, and then we were all of a sudden like, had we just really like been so desperate for it to be fine that we completely missed some signals? So he took us into this room, which was what can only be described as the room of doom. Like, you know, that's where they go to tell people like bad news. So I was like, my heart was pounding, I was freaking out. But straight away he said, I know you are a worrier, so I don't want to worry you any more than you need to be. He said, this isn't something I think you need to be worried about, but I am super cautious and it's something I'd like to keep an eye on. So essentially, I'm going to read you what he wrote on the report because I don't really understand it. He put on the report, there appears to be subcenturiate placental lobe at the posterior aspect of the fundus. A rescan at 34 weeks will be arranged to reassess around the 8th of September. So, I have not Googled this because you all know what I'm like, and Andrew has forbid me from Googling this, which I think is a good thing because I drive myself insane Googling things, and I've just promised myself I won't do that anymore. So I kind of asked him for as much detail as I could then and there to make sure I understood it, and basically, if any of you are watching and understand this more than me, you'll be like, I'm explaining this wrong. But from his description, there's my placenta, and then I have another tiny little bit of placenta. And he said it's quite rare, but it does happen. And basically, it was hard for him to tell on the scan whether they were attached by blood vessels or not, which is why I have to go back for a rescan. This is completely fine for the baby, it's not a worry for the baby, it is a worry for me in labour. So basically, if the two bits of placenta are joined by blood vessels, that is a problem and I will need to have a C-section because there is a risk that during natural labour you can break those blood vessels and a lot of bleeding would ensue, which is obviously dangerous for me and probably dangerous for the baby, in all honesty. But he definitely made it seem more like it was a worry for me than for baby, which I am more than happy about it being that way around. So if there are blood vessels, I will have to have a cesarean, which is fine with me. I am going to do a birth plan video, hopefully nearer the time, but I am completely on board with doing whatever is safest. He couldn't tell whether there were blood vessels or not when he was doing the scan. If there's not, it's totally fine and I could just have a normal natural birth. It's just if there are blood vessels. So surprisingly for me, I am feeling really calm about this. If you have any horror stories or you've read any horror stories about this, please just don't tell me. I really don't want to know. That probably sounds really ignorant, but I know what I'm like and I'm a worrier, and for me to not be worrying about this is just such a good thing for me because I worry about everything else. So yeah, if you know any horror stories or anything, please don't let me know. They're keeping an eye on it and I will be rescanned at 34 weeks, so I am happy with that. I'm happy that he didn't think it would affect the baby, and if they're keeping an eye on it, hopefully that is fine. So yeah, that was definitely the main thing this week. I will quickly go on and discuss kind of symptoms and things. I have been feeling the baby move a lot more, which is so weird and so amazing, and I've actually now been able to see it from the outside of my belly. I can see like a little whatever it is come out, and like it's really bizarre. I've tried to catch it on camera, but he is a total diva, and every time I turn that camera on he's like, I'm not gonna move, and then I'll turn it back off and he's like boom boom boom. So he's a total diva. Probably gets that from his dad, but yeah, so that is really weird, and Andrew and my mum have both actually felt it from the outside as well, which at 20 weeks I think is really, really good. And to say I've got an anterior placenta and they said I'd probably feel movements a lot later, I'm really, really happy with that. He seems to have days where he's really active. He'll have like 2 days where he's really active, and then he'll have a day where he's quiet and I'll hardly feel him, which does panic me a bit. I'm on a quiet day today. I kind of had predicted it because he'd had 2 really active days and I was like, oh, he's going to be so quiet tomorrow. And it seems to be his pattern, but then it doesn't stop me on the day where he's quiet being like, why isn't he moving? But I think it's when you get to 6 months. So I think it's when you hit 24 weeks upwards, you should be feeling them every day. And I have still felt him on those quiet days, just not very much. So I hope that's okay. So yeah, movements have been amazing. It feels so bizarre to feel your baby move in your belly. I just don't think that feeling will ever get old. It's so special. So that's been really nice. What else? My hair is one thing I wanted to talk about. I hear people talk about losing their hair once they've had their baby. And I thought when you were pregnant, your hair was meant to get really luscious and glossy and nice. And in the first trimester and kind of a bit into the second trimester, that was definitely the case for me. And I felt like my hair was being really well behaved. But the past few weeks, I feel like my hair is just falling out. Nothing too major, but if I shower and I'm rubbing the shampoo or conditioner through my hair, I take my hand out and there's loads of hair on my hand, or if I'm brushing my hair to use my straighteners or my curlers, I notice loads of hair coming out, and I'm lucky that I have very thick hair anyway. I've got a lot of hair, so it's not really anything noticeable. I don't think anyone would notice at the moment, but it's just scary when I see all that hair coming out. It's really weird as well. Me and my mum always say, obviously she's having chemotherapy and I'm pregnant, but our symptoms are incredibly similar. It's really weird. And now I'm my hair's coming out. It's getting even stranger. We have extremely similar symptoms. So that is really weird. But yeah, it's not bothering me at the moment because you can't really tell, but I am slightly concerned that am I going to wake up one day with no hair? I don't know. I just didn't think this was meant to happen yet. I thought it was meant to happen after you'd had the baby. Have any of you guys lost hair during pregnancy? I don't know. It's not making me feel very nice. So yeah, there's that. What else? The only other thing I can think to really mention is just the fact my bump has got huge. I feel huge. Sometimes I'm is this too big for this stage? I feel enormous. If you remember me saying in my last update, I'd had those few days where I got horrendous cramps. They probably lasted 4 or 5 days and they were pretty bad cramps. But when I woke up one day, they'd completely gone. I stood up and literally it was bam. And my bump had super grown. And now I just feel I look so pregnant. I'll show you the bump at the end. But I feel ridiculous. I feel huge. So yeah, I love it. I love having a bump. It makes me feel so special, and I want to strut around and be look at my belly. I do love it, but I'm just whoa, is that too big for 21 weeks? Let me know what you think. I think it's huge. So yeah, they're probably the main things really. Everything else I'm feeling fine. Still getting headaches, but probably not as much. I'm going to regret saying that. I need to touch wood. Yeah, headaches, but not as much. And yeah, that's probably it. I will leave you with the bump. I don't have the normal vest top and legging situation I do for my bump shot because it's in the wash. So I'll just show you in what I'm wearing, which is this black maxi dress. But I think it looks huge. Let me know what you think, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye guys. So I am actually wearing a maternity dress today. It's just this black maxi dress. I got it from ASOS if anyone's wondering. And yeah, this is the bump at 21 weeks. I feel enormous. I feel absolutely huge now. I feel like I've hit that stage where I look pregnant rather than just is she fat, is she pregnant? So yeah, this is the bump at 21 weeks. Absolutely solid. Yeah, and I'm absolutely loving it. So that is baby.